What is going on, you guys? Welcome to Pistons Talk Podcast post-game show. Just got done eating a little bit of food. Wanted to do a quick podcast for you guys tonight. This is actually podcast number 2. If you guys did watch our pregame show earlier with the Chicago Bulls writer Will, that podcast was actually bad because of the technical difficulties we had, but if you guys want to check it out, go for it. Did want to get into this post-game show. So right off the rip, there was no Marcus Sasser. He had a hip injury. He's got hip impingement. Karis LeVert was probable. Same starting lineup that you had out there to end the preseason. Cade, Duncan, Asar, Tobias, Jalen Duren. So no Jaden Ivey. As we know, he's going to be out for the next couple of weeks. Should get an update in around 3.5 weeks or so with his rehab and how that's going. Jalen Duren right away. The quick fouls is something that we saw a lot last year. He picked up 2 fouls in under 3 minutes. It's just a thing where he's so important to this team. You can't get 2 fouls in the first 2 minutes. You just can't. One of them I thought was 100% just his fault, trying to reach in, trying to get a steal. The second one, I'll give him a little bit of leeway. There were plenty of Chicago Bulls players trying to grab offensive rebounds, and he was out of position. Nikola Vucevic got an offensive rebound, and then Jalen Duren had to sit out. There was just a lot of fouling by the Detroit Pistons, especially in this game. The Bulls went on a 12-0 run when the Pistons had their only lead early in this first. So the Pistons were up 12-10. Bulls go on a 12-0 run. The transition defense was just really, really bad. I think the defense collectively in the first 3 quarters was just it wasn't active. There was no communication, no rotations. The perimeter defense was bad. There were multiple possessions where Chicago just had a really easy time shooting 3-point shots. Isaiah Stewart had to leave the game. He bumped knees with Kevin Huerter. He did eventually come back around the 5-minute mark into the second quarter, and he was really big in this game. But Chicago had a 35-19 score after 12 minutes of play after the first quarter, transitioning into the second quarter. I think what I saw a lot tonight, you guys, was the lack of ball movement. There was a lot of isolation. And credit the Chicago Bulls defense. I think they made it really difficult for the Detroit Pistons to get comfortable in the half court and offensive sets. But the ball movement was very non-existent. It felt like the ball was sticking at times. A lot of isolations, whether it was Cade, whether it was Karis LeVert, Tobias, even Asar at times. It just no ball movement whatsoever. Couldn't really generate any type of offense. Bulls had a lead as high as 23. The Pistons were fortunate to cut it down to a 15-point lead. So Chicago had a pretty substantial lead, 64-49. And the Pistons did end the quarter on an 18-10 run. Going into the third, the Pistons trimmed the lead down to 9, believe it or not, but the Bulls got it back up to 20 points pretty fast. It was Nikola Vucevic, it was Josh Giddey, it was Matas Pizzelis, Trey Jones had a good game, but it was just a situation in the third quarter where there wasn't a whole lot of defense being played. Ron Holland, I felt him and Stu really brought energy, brought effort. At the end of the third, it was 94-79. Going into the fourth quarter, this was the Pistons' best quarter. Stu played big minutes. Isaiah Stewart, to me, I was really impressed with the minutes that he did provide the Pistons in this one, you guys. And I think there's a big reason why JB Bickerstaff played him as much as he did. He was hitting his threes. He was protecting the rim. I think this is his 4th 20-point game in his career. Doesn't have too many of those. He does sacrifice a lot for the team. He's not always looking to score, but him and Ron really brought the energy, got the Pistons back into this game. And I think if you go back and watch the fourth quarter, there was a really late challenge call. It was a 1-point game. It looked like the Detroit Pistons were going to have an opportunity to have the ball, 13 seconds left, only down one. The Chicago Bulls decide to use one of their coaches' challenge. It got overturned, and it sent Josh Giddey to the free throw line, and they go up 3. We try to drop a play, coming out of the timeout. Cade takes a contested 3-point shot. It rims out. Tobias Harris gets the rebound. He tries to take a really tough shot, and the Pistons have to foul. Couldn't really get anything outside of that, and the Bulls won by 4. They win 115-111. But overall, I don't think that's the way the Detroit Pistons wanted to start the season. I don't think they wanted to come out that sluggish defensively. You guys probably watched the game. The first 3 quarters of this game, it was really, really bad. I thought the fourth quarter, if they played the way they did defensively in the fourth quarter, they probably win by 10 or 15 points. But it was really bad. It really was. I do want to get into comments and questions with you guys. I do see a couple of comments and questions, and then I will start this one. I didn't mean to do that one yet. It's a question I actually wanted to get into, but let's get into it. So I want to go to this one. It comes from the G Crate. The defense was so bad. Everyone looks lost and out of position / place. I do agree. I think for the first 3 quarters, transition defense was really bad. But that's what the Bulls do. I think some people forget the Chicago Bulls were one of the best transition teams last year in the NBA. That's what they love to do. They love to run in transition. And I don't really think the Detroit Pistons were fully expecting the Chicago Bulls to run as much as they did. They did have a pretty good shooting night. If you do ask me, there were a couple of 3-point shots where I was like, wow, it actually went in. But I do agree. I think for 3 quarters, the defense was really bad, out of position, and lack of communication. Several times you saw guys just miscommunicate, whether it was backdoor cuts or rotations. But overall, I think there are some things that the coaching staff will watch the film with the players and get ready for the Houston Rockets on Friday. I have a comment from Out of the Blue Sports. Shout out. Everything about this game felt familiar to last year. Down 20 at the half, show a ton of fight to get back into it and make it a game. Difference to me felt like no Ivy, Beasley, bucket getters. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you were watching these post-game podcasts last year out of the Blue Sports, but I was calling the Detroit Pistons the cardiac kids because the way that they would play games in the first half, they'd be down like 14 to like 18 points, right? And they come back out of halftime, they punch the other team in the mouth, really aggressive, and they get back into this game like they did tonight. They had a shot to tie the game, win the game. But again, you didn't have Jaden Ivey. He's going to be out. Beasley still under investigation. Duncan Robinson, I felt, because I see some people talking about Duncan Robinson, and this is just my perspective watching the game. You guys might have a different perspective. He thinks a lot before he shoots. I saw a lot of hesitation from him where last year with Beasley to me was just letting it fly regardless. Duncan had opportunities to shoot threes, but he decided not to. Pass it back out to Cade, pass it back out to Duran, Asar, whatever it may be. I think he'll watch the film. He'll see opportunities where he can get the shot off quicker. It just felt like he was really processing, the whole play offensively, and he wasn't just letting it fly. But that's just my opinion of what I watched Duncan tonight. I felt like he was just overthinking things and not shooting the basketball. I have a comment from Detroit Red. Shout out. Let me be the first one to say Ron Holland needs more minutes. He's the only guy on the team that's not afraid to attack on the offensive end. You know what? I had a podcast this past weekend with Sean Murphy, and we were talking about, hey, could Ron Holland be inserted into the starting lineup without Jaden Ivey? And he said it wouldn't surprise him if Ron Holland got some shooting guard minutes at the two, just because of the lack of shooting guards that we have available, because Marcus Sasser's dealing with an injury, Jaden Ivey's dealing with an injury. But I agree. Everything with Ron Holland, I absolutely love the energy, the fight, the fearlessness. There was a play really late in the fourth quarter. He had three guys on him, and he made a basket. Like he made a really tough contested layup, and he's not afraid. He's out there scrapping. He gambled a little bit for steals, but it did pay off. I've been so impressed with him since they drafted him. I think it's just a matter of time before he is in the starting lineup. I really feel that. I think he's just too talented of a player to have off of your bench, as every time he comes in, he brings energy, he brings effort. And if you notice, the Pistons go on runs every time Ron Holland is in the basketball game. So wouldn't surprise me if you see Ron Holland get extended minutes or possibly get it inserted into the starting lineup at some point this season. Got a comment. Do people still think we're better team without Ivy? Sure would have been handy to have a second score so it's not arcade. That's a whole other conversation for a different day. I will touch on this question, though. I honestly think that a lot of people last year, when the Pistons were winning games, I saw those conversations. I saw those comments. I think Ivy is a very talented player. If he was out there, absolutely, you have not only a second scorer, but you have a secondary ball handler. So Cade wouldn't have to bring the ball up the court each and every possession. Saw Asar kind of slot into that secondary ball handler role tonight. I thought he did okay. He was a little bit passive at times. There was a possession where the defenses sagged off of him from three and decided not to shoot it, pass it back to Tobias, and cut back door and scored. But I want to see a little bit more aggressiveness out of Asar Thompson. I think overall, having those secondary on-ball reps is something that we're probably going to see with Jaden Ivey being out. But I don't really think that this team is better without Jaden Ivey. I think people just like having those conversations. And like, I'm never going to tell a fan how to fan. I'm never going to say, like, you guys, your opinions don't matter. I disagree with the Ivy discourse, and we're better without Ivy. I think this team is more dynamic with Jaden Ivey, in my personal opinion. I've got a question from Sean Don through and three. Jalen Duren might not be worth a contract extension with this team. Good young player, but it doesn't do enough defensively to command a big contract to me. I saw a lot of that on the timeline. We're in game 1, 81 more to go. And you saw the reports that came out from Mark Stein that Jalen Duren's camp was seeking north of $30 million per year with a contract extension. You're in a contract year. I think Jalen Duren had a game where he probably would want to have it back, especially on the defensive end of the floor. I thought in the fourth quarter, he showed a little bit more awareness defensively. I thought in the first half, had some ticky-tack fouls. The way that they were calling the game, he was setting screens, he was getting foul calls, he was getting out-rebounded. Nikola Vucevic, every time he plays Jalen Duren, he just eats. One of the best stretch fives that we have in this game, even at his age. He had a double-double tonight. But I think JD needs to lock in defensively. Don, I agree. If he does want that big boy contract, you can't have effort and nights like this on a consistent basis, because no team in the NBA would pay you $30 million if you're going to play defense like that, unless you're like Alperen Sengun and you can just score 30 on any given night. But I do agree. I think JD just needs to be consistent on both ends of the floor. Stu and Ron. Stu was rocking. Ron was awesome. Everyone else, not so much. We miss Beasley. 100% T. I thought Stu and Ron, if just from a individual standpoint, I thought they had great games tonight, but I think everyone else really struggled. I felt like those two really brought the energy defensively and tried to get everyone back into this game just with their defensive mindset, making stops, whether it was Stu protecting the rim, Ron just being a pest out there. But I think you'll see a much more aggressive, alert team against the Houston Rockets on Friday. Want to get to a couple more comments and questions. I do see a couple of you guys are still commenting on this post game show. Got a comment from You Can't Hate Me Now. Got to start Holland over Duncan. His defense is 0% out there. Yeah, I mean, you're not really signing Duncan Robinson for his defense. I think we can all agree Ryan Holland is a better defender than Duncan Robinson. And Ron will give you hustle points. He has shown the ability to make open shots if left open enough. We mentioned earlier at the top of the podcast that he's just a fearless attacker at the basket. Some of his finishes around the rim and some of his layups, I still just question how it goes in. I have to rewind it sometimes because they're just such acrobatic finishes. Like, wow, I can't believe that went in. But yeah, I mean, if we're just talking from a defensive standpoint, 100%, Ron Holland would be my vote as a starting two guard if you just want to go for defense. Guys were getting beat off the dribble, but he can't afford to help off of Vooch that much. He gives Vooch practice shots. Yeah, that's a very good observation from you, Rocky. I felt like there were situations where Duran wanted to help out, and when he did, then Vooch was wide open, and you had switches with Cade or you had switches with Tobias. But I think collectively, defensively, if we go back and watch this game with Jalen Duran, it wasn't his best effort. I think that's why we saw so much Isaiah Stewart in this game, because Isaiah Stewart comes into the game and you have a rim protector, and he was providing offense tonight, which I thought was really huge. We didn't see a whole lot of that from Isaiah Stewart last year. Hit a couple of threes, was really fighting down low in the post, hit a couple of free throws. It'll be interesting to see throughout the season how much JB does really lean on Isaiah Stewart in games like this if Duran isn't bringing it defensively. I think Jalen needs to grab more rebounds. He needs to average like 13 rebounds. We really didn't get any second chance points. And credit the Chicago Bulls for doing that. I thought they did a really good job of just securing rebounds. They didn't really let too many offensive rebounds, and you could tell Jalen Duran was frustrated. I mean, he's battling with Jalen Smith. He was battling with Nikola Vucevic. Those two guys aren't like, you don't talk about them in like a top 10 center tier list or anything like that. But Jalen Smith is a serviceable backup. Nikola Vucevic has been in the NBA for a very long time. He understands angles. You could definitely see a frustrated Jalen Duran tonight, but I honestly think that he'll be more motivated to go up against Alperen Sengun, and you have Steven Adams. So you have two more great centers to deal with on Friday against the Houston Rockets. I got a comment from Rocky. I'd love to see Klitman and Chaz can give us. I thought we could have used them, both of them tonight, especially Chaz, just for the three-point shooting. I don't know how ready Chaz is actually there to be in the rotation or to compete. I honestly think if Sasser was healthy, he probably would have got his number called a lot tonight just because of the lack of shooting guard help and ball handlers and being able to score the basketball. But Klitman, I'm not really too sure about. I think we saw some flashes in the preseason. I think there's still something there that the Pistons do want to develop. I don't really know how much clock he's going to get, though. And unless it's garbage time or there's an injury, I really don't see him too deep in the rotation, which I know a lot of fans wanted to see him, get some, backup 4 minutes, considering we didn't really, quote unquote, sign one. But I think you will see more Bobby Klitman this year. I'm just not 100% sure how much we'll actually get to see him, Rocky. But I do want to wrap up this podcast, you guys. I don't want to keep up too much of your time. Um, like I mentioned at the top of the podcast, this is our second podcast today. What we're going to be doing during the season is we are going to be doing pregame podcast, where I talk to an opposing journalist, content creator about the team. So tomorrow we'll be talking to a Houston Rockets content creator, one of the bigger content creators that covers the Houston Rockets, kind of previewing the game a little bit. And we'll do a post-game show after the Rockets game is over. So we're going to be doing that all season long. We have it scheduled with Celtics reporters. We got Cavs. We got a lot of different journalists, content creators, YouTubers like myself that I'll be having on the podcast and on this YouTube channel. If you guys could, on the way out, hit that like button. If you're not subscribed already, definitely hit that subscribe button. We'll be bringing you guys a lot of podcasts, a lot of content throughout the season. But hope you guys have a good rest of your night, and we will see you guys on Friday. Have a good night. Peace.